Murder, intrigue, corruption, sexual passion. Yes, please. The Iron King demands you read this book. Hello, welcome to the Bottled Imp.
Exploring the realms of fantasy.
My name is Ken Boyter, and today we are going to be looking at The Iron King by Maurice Druon. I think that's how you pronounce his name in true Bottled Imp style. Now, I'm intrigued by this book. I love Game of Thrones, I don't think that's a secret. And of course, when you're looking for something that's similar, and you have George R.R. Martin quoted saying, "This is the original Game of Thrones," well, it'd be rude not to take a look. So, let's find out if it really is the original Game of Thrones. But it's The Iron King. Let's have a look. The Iron King. So, what is this all about? And indeed, does it compare to Game of Thrones? Well, let's first set the scene. It is 13th century, 14th century France, and a little bit of England, and it's all about royalty and power and the struggle to keep power. It's also about the Knights Templars. They have been, at this point, they used to be an order, a religious order, who also were warriors. You probably know about the Knights Templars. And they have been, kind of over the years, they've been decimated. The Iron King, Philip the Fair, he actually has had a big disagreement with them, and he's decided, well, we're going to get rid of them, we're going to start killing them off. So at this stage, when you open up the novel, there's only 4 Knights Templars left that they know of. Some have either left the country and set up a different order, some have been, well, the majority of them were killed, and there's only 4 left. There's one in particular, the Grand Master, and he is actually in chains when you first open the book. And that is an intriguing beginning, because you think, okay, who is this guy? What has he done? Why is he in this dungeon? And as the story unfolds, you learn more and more about it. So there's this dispute, there's this trouble between the royalty and the Knights Templars. So you've got religion in there. And back in the medieval times, religion and God and the belief in God was huge. That was nobody, if you said you were against God or you didn't believe in God, well, you could very well pay for your life if you had those views. So the religious order, that was a big deal, obviously, back in the medieval era. The other thing that it concentrates on is the lower royals. So you've got 3 sons and you've got their wives. They've married other royalty, and it's about their relationships. And without giving too much away, their marriages aren't all that they seem. So again, you get good intrigue, you get betrayal, you get lots of characters that intertwine. And does that sound familiar? Yes, of course. That is basically what Game of Thrones is kind of all about. It's about kingdoms, it's about keeping power, and it's about the struggle for power. Now, what I like about this book is the writing. As soon as you open the page, I read the first 3 or 4 pages and I was comfortable with his style of writing. It's very economical, it's intriguing, it's engaging, and it certainly is a page turner. I really wanted to find out more about these characters. And the characters he creates, obviously they are, on the whole, I would imagine, historical. I've not done loads of research about if he's totally been accurate. I would imagine he is, because the way he writes them, really you get a sense that they lived and they breathed, and he really gets into their mindset. So obviously each character, this is what you want to do if you're writing fantasy. You want to create your characters so that they each have their own thoughts and their own world view, their own motivations, and that's exactly what you get. So you can distinguish between the characters. Now there is a list of characters at the beginning of the book, like Game of Thrones, obviously. There's loads of characters, so you do need a list, and it's not too much of a hassle to keep checking back. I did have to check back, but once I was, say, about 50 pages in, I then I kind of definitely understood who was who had loyalty to who, and what they were, what their motivations were and what they wanted out of life. And I think that was a real credit, because when you're reading historical fiction, you really want that sense of being. You want to be that fly on the wall. You want to be there. And I think he does a real good job of evoking that period of time in France. And the other good thing is that all the characters naturally intertwine. None of the plot seems contrived. It seems to unfold as it should do. And there are a few twists and turns along the way that's good. Again, if you've seen Game of Thrones, definitely twists and turns. As I say, it's a page turner. And the other thing is, I did like there was an appendix at the end of the book. And is that the right expression, appendix? It's like out of your body. Appendice. Is that it? I don't quite know. But there's little detailed notes, little footnotes at the end of the book where you can find out, and that's where he's put referencing historical interesting facts. For example, and I didn't know this, that at that time the year didn't start on the 1st of January. So in France it started, say, March time, and in England it started whenever, March, April, February time. And Russia, again, there was no 1st of January at the beginning of the year. And not only that, the year could vary in length. It changed each year when the first of the year started. So you could have one where you've got 2 springs, one at the beginning of the year and one at the end of the year, which seems absolutely bonkers. But there you go. It wasn't until like where's my notes? 1565, 1565, France decided, 1st of January would be the beginning of the year. In Russia, it was 1725, and in England, it wasn't until 1752. I mean, that's amazing. Now, you're probably wondering, well, okay, it's all good, that's all interesting stuff, but where's the fantasy? And this is where it slightly differs from Game of Thrones, because there isn't any. I know, shock horror. Now, I would say, though, that a lot of fantasy, well, certainly the Sword of Sorcery, that kind of fantasy, epic fantasy, it's soaked in medieval trappings. And that is where you would feel the fantasy there. It feels like a fantasy novel, obviously, because a lot of fantasy is based in the medieval era. And if you're interested in writing fantasy, like I am, then I would totally recommend reading a lot of historical fiction, not just fantasy, because you can be inspired from historical fiction, like George R.R. Martin was, because basically he is describing the War of the Roses that happened in England and the divided country. And it has that sense of you can be inspired by real events. So, for example, why not have a calendar then? Why does the years count up? You could have it where you create a god, and in your world, and that god says yes. It's the myth that God will destroy the world in 5,000 years. So you can have a clock that counts down. The years could, you could, instead of going up the calendar, you could go down the calendar. So there's lots of things that you can be inspired by. Now, this is book 1. I will point out book 1 of the Accursed Kings series is what the actual series. Now, I don't know how many books there are. What I wanted to do was just dive straight into this book. I wanted to just kind of give, what did it make me feel without knowing too much about it? And for me, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was really intriguing. The characters were well drawn. The writing is brilliant. The plot, is gripping, and it's not corny. And the lack of fantasy, to me, that doesn't matter, because I can see exactly where George R.R. Martin went from, and he highly rates these series of books. So I'm glad that I've started my quest to read all of the books. Again, I don't like to buy too many books of a series straight away, because what if I don't like the first one? But I would recommend that you definitely read The Iron King. Thank you for watching our review of The Iron King. Thoroughly recommend this. Now, you may have heard some, there it is, I don't know if the microphone can pick this up, some knocking. Well, that is because Grocklesnook, who is our imp in the bottle, he's getting a bit restless, and he keeps knocking to try and get out of his bottle. And one day, he will escape. He will be released from the bottle. I don't know when that's going to be, but I wouldn't want to be around when it happens. Anyway, thanks for watching, and let us know your comments about The Iron King, or indeed any of our other reviews. And if you're interested in Game of Thrones, because obviously there's a close tie to it, we have done a board game review of Game of Thrones, and we've also done the first 5 books that have been released. I think it's 5 books or maybe 4 books of A Game of Thrones. So check them out too. You can subscribe to our channel, please do, and thank you if you have done already. We've got a Facebook page, we've also got Twitter. So until the next time, fellow imps, and watch out for Grocklesnook, he may be around. Catch you later.